12 men have just discovered something. For 100,000 years, it was buried in the snow and ice. Now it has found a place to live. Inside. Where no one can see it, or hear it, or feel it.
Hi guys, this is Mr. Bangers, aka Zack.
This is Mr. Bash, aka JD.
Our previous episode, the Ninja Turtles episode, was really late. The people on the Facebook group know why. But for the benefit of our listeners who aren't on the Facebook group, I'll explain. My PC died. The motherboard died. And the PC is, of course, where I do all of my audio editing. That put the previous episode in a state of limbo for about 2 weeks while I got my data off of my hard disk. It was a huge clusterfuck. And I am going to thank everybody on the Facebook group for their support during an annoying time.
Yes.
But in order to make up for super late episode, we figure we would do a commentary, get this out immediately. What movie are we going to be talking over today, Mr. Mash?
The Thing.
Yeah, this is one of 2 requests we've received for commentaries. And even though I don't really like doing commentaries because I just feel like they're a lower quality, they usually are pretty popular. But this is one of 2 requests we got. Lee requested The Thing, and Lloyd requested the producer's cut of Halloween 6.
Which we have yet to acquire.
Yeah,
we're working on that.
That's getting a remastered release from Shout Factory later in the year. I would like to do that someday, and I intend on doing it someday, whenever we get our hands on it. But here we are, we're talking over The Thing. We're watching this on the Universal Collector's Edition DVD because JD didn't bring over his Blu-ray like a big fat jerk.
I'm not a jerk.
The runtime on this is listed as an hour and 49 minutes. For those watching along with us, and we encourage you to do so, because otherwise this isn't going to make a whole lot of sense, I am pressing play now. So here is the Universal logo, obviously.
Which doesn't look as nice as they do on my Blu-ray set of the Universal Monsters.
Rub it in, JD, rub it in. So have you ever seen the original The Thing from Another World from the 50s?
No.
I haven't.
From all accounts, I hear there's no point to if I've seen this one.
Well, no, they're very different films because in the original version, The Thing is a bipedal humanoid creature played by James Arness from Gunsmoke. Looks a lot like Frankenstein's monster. He's got a flat head and a big forehead. And the original is a good 50s monster movie, but it's obviously a very different creature from this version, which is closer to the original book called Who Goes There, written by W. Scott Campbell, I believe is the author. And as in this film, as in the book, The Thing is a shapeshifter, which of course provides us with probably some of the best special effects ever put to screen, I think, maybe.
Oh, I mean, remarkable.
Yeah.
And they hold up so well.
Well, yeah, we'll see here in a minute, won't we?
Which is why we always, get excited when we see that stuff is practical effects instead of CGI.
Well, yeah, and I remember when the prequel remake, whatever it was, of The Thing came out a few years ago, they said that it was going to be all practical effects. And then in post, the filmmakers covered up all the practical effects with CGI because they thought they didn't look... They said something like they looked too practical, which seemed like a contradiction in terms. This is why I don't like doing commentaries, because we always talk over ourselves.
I feel like that's not right.
We just saw the spaceship go through...
Now, in the book, do they ever tell us what race of alien this is?
Not a clue. I've never actually read the book. I'll be totally honest. So something this film does take from the original is this opening title sequence with the letters ripping through fabric. That's straight out of the original. And it's something I'm glad they kept because it is a pretty great image.
Now, I actually did know that.
Now, when I first saw this movie, I was a little confused because the ship, you see that in the opening credits, but, I mean, we are to assume that it landed on Earth millennia ago, right?
Yeah, like well before 1982?
Yeah, where the film is set, as the title card just said. Here's this great Ennio Morricone electronic score. And it's unusual because Carpenter usually does his own music, but I guess he just couldn't resist the opportunity to work with Morricone, who's of course one of the greatest composers of our time, film composers.
Yeah, sure.
Well, he did the music for all the great spaghetti westerns in the 60s, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, the very famous wah, wah, wah music for Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Okay.
And many other wonderful scores. He's a great composer.
Boom, boom.
And I have no idea where this film was shot. I'm assuming they didn't actually shoot it in the Arctic. And obviously, once they get inside of the research center, it's on sets. But I'm assuming maybe they shot it in Canada or something. Someplace where there's a lot of cold snow.
I mean, I would assume so.
Now, when you first saw this film, did you have any idea what was going on in this opening scene here with the Russians chasing after... Well, they're not Russians, they're like Polish or something, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, Norwegians, I think.
That's what it is, they're Norwegians.
They're Norwegians from Norway. Because obviously the misdirection here in this first scene is... I think it's just common sense that any viewer is going to sympathize with the dog, unless you're one of those weird people who don't like dogs, and if you don't, what the hell's wrong with you? And so, here this guy is shooting at this dog, and why is he doing that? Why is he shooting at that dog? Here, I'll do it as if I'm Arnold Schwarzenegger commentating on the movie. Look at that, he's shooting at that dog. Why is he doing that?
Well, why would you do that? Why would you shoot at the dog?
But anyway, I guess my question is, did you get that the dog was the thing in the first scene here?
No, I'm not even sure that I get it now. I mean, it's one of those things you kind of just accept it and move on.
For sure.
That dog is kind of like the engine of this movie. That gets it going.
It gets it off to a running start, you could say.
Yes.
Now, of course, we're being introduced to our characters here, and pretty soon we're going to hear the only female character in the film.
Isn't this voiced by somebody?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's Adrienne Barbeau, who, of course, was married to John Carpenter at the time. And a lot has been talked about Carpenter's decision to make this a men's-only film. Of course, in the original film, there is a female character. There's a secretary who is something of a routine romantic interest. And, what McCready just did there was basically kill the only female character in the film when he poured his whiskey or scotch or whatever it was into the computer. Which raises some interesting questions about this film's possible gender politics. I don't know if we want to read into that in any way.
I don't think it needs to be read into.
I really don't feel like there is any.
I feel like this is just a product of the time.
I don't even know if I think it was a intentional choice on the director's half to make I guess you would call a men on a mission film. And of course, John Carpenter is a huge fan of westerns, especially the westerns of John Ford, and he's talked about this many times before. And I feel like by making this film with an all-male cast, it was sort of a throwback to films like The Wild Bunch or Rio Grande, Rio Lobo, films like that had primarily male casts. Tough guys out in an isolated location doing stuff. Of course, here the location is especially isolated because they're in the Arctic.
Well, right, but also it would be interesting to note that this is, in fact, a horror movie, and it's very rare to see a horror movie with an all-male cast.
Yeah, because we always got to get a woman in there to scream at stuff, right?
Right. So I think that he was just trying to do something a little different while doing a callback to those westerns.
Perhaps.
So I think there was a dual purpose there.
Look at all that snow.
I know, I just want to run in it.
That's what most of this commentary is going to be. It's just going like, wow, look at all that snow, guys. That's a lot of snow.
Oh, look at all that snow. Oh my god, that guy's head just came off now. I mean, that'll probably be later. 90% of the commentary is just going to start with us saying, Oh, man, look at that.
Look at that cool thing that's happening.
Either the snow, because that's literally cool.
Now, I'll be perfectly honest, I don't remember the names of most of the characters in this film. I remember McCready, that's Kirk Russell, and Childs, that's Keith David's character. But, he just dropped the grenade. It's funny because he dropped the grenade.
That silly Norwegian man just dropped a grenade and blew up his helicopter. They can't get to the chopper now.
I mean, look at it. It's an adorable dog. I swear, guys, I'm not going to turn into a horrible, grotesque monster and kill all of you. I'm just a adorable husky.
Yeah, let's knock out the window in the Arctic. That's a good idea.
Well, earlier, McCready just steps out of the building in just a t-shirt. I mean, I guess he had it was like a sweater and an undershirt, but even then, maybe he should be a little better guarded than that.
Right through the eye.
Kill shot. Hey, Twitch. Don't you hate commentaries where they just describe what's happening on screen?
Oh, yeah, that's... I mean, like any Arnold Schwarzenegger commentary?
Well, it's great because Arnold's doing it, and he makes everything better. So, do they ever answer what they're doing out here in the Arctic? Why these guys are...
I don't think anyone cares.
Obviously, they're doing some sort of scientific research, but do they ever tell us what exactly they're doing?
No.
It's one of the many mysteries of the thing.
I just point out that I'm so glad that god-awful remake prequel, remake roll, whatever you want to call it.
It was basically a prequel.
I'm glad that didn't spawn a remake of this because...
Well, I saw that film, and I remember very little about it. It didn't stick with me. I remember...
horrible CGI, because it had it.
I remember that. I remember... Oh, I can't even think of her name. Mary Elizabeth Winstead with a flamethrower and hanging out in parkas and stuff. I first saw this movie on TV. Imagine how much fun that was.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Honestly, it was on Sci-Fi Channel in the late 90s, so it wasn't edited very much beyond the profanity. I think most of the monster stuff was kept in. And I remember... Actually, I'll be totally honest. I started watching it and I didn't finish it because I was so just unsettled by the effects that it's I'm not watching this by myself in the middle of the night. Let's watch something else.
You girl.
Yeah, I was a total wimp. There's Wilford Brimley, sans mustache. I think there's an entire generation of kids who don't know Wilford Brimley as anything but the diabetes guy. Which is a shame because he's been in some great films, this chief among them, but of course he's fantastic in Jean-Claude Van Damme's Hard Target, where he plays a Cajun who blows up things with a crossbow. He's awesome in that. But
is he also the guy that played CD in Walker, Texas Ranger?
No, that was some other big fat dude with a mustache.
That also does diabetes commercials.
Maybe. Keith David isn't cast in enough things. He should be in every movie. He has that amazing deep baritone voice. Of course, he's been the voice of the Navy recruitment commercials for many years.
He's the voice of anything military.
Yeah, kind of.
Because he's in the Call of Duty games, too.
Oh, is he? Mm-hmm. I think I was first really noticed Keith David on the TV show Gargoyles, where he was, of course, Goliath. And
which, that's just perfect casting.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he has such a effective, memorable voice.
In fact, if they ever make the live-action Gargoyles movie... That, of course, was the dog who wanted to be part of the podcast. She's the gravy this week. And she's after a bug, ladies and gentlemen. So when she puts in her 2 cents, that's what it'll be.
No barking. We're recording. Every time we record, there's some sort of fucking disaster. The phone rings, or the dog barks, or
the bee stings.
There's always some sort. This is one of the reasons I hate doing commentaries, because there's always some outside noise intervening. We can almost never get 2 hours of pure quiet to ourselves. I swear.
Yeah,
man.
but when these things happen, we just simply remember a few of our favorite things, and then we don't feel so bad.
So anyway, the thing. Here's some dudes hanging out in a room where they're looking out a window. I have no idea what's going on. Totally lost the thread of the plot here.
Oh man, this is a movie you don't really have to have a plot for.
What's the arcade game in the background there? I didn't get a good look at it.
Oh man, can we rewind it? No, because
no, I won't. That'll throw off the commentary.
We're going to look that up.
McCready's got a pretty badass hat on. Kirk Russell. Manly actor, Kirk Russell. Just ignore that last statement, listeners. Kirk Russell, manly actor or manliest actor?
Manliest?
I feel like when he has the full beard, his manliness goes up by about 20%.
Because you see him maybe, but you got to remember though, there's Jason Statham.
Well, the Steak is a different type of manly compared to Kirk. Kirk is sort of the old-fashioned kind of John Wayne style manly. In fact, he's does a John Wayne impersonation all throughout Big Trouble in Little China, which is another great John Carpenter movie.
Yes.
I think that Sammy, I think that song there could possibly be some foreshadowing. Ominous things are about to happen.
What is it?
It's dead now, whatever it is. I'm so glad this is on video. I'm so glad this has been recorded. My dog just killed this giant bug that's been in the basement humming every night for the last 2 weeks, driving me insane. So, okay, it's dead now.
Apparently had a bad taste, too, because
it almost looks like a wasp, but it's not. It doesn't have a stinger. This is why I love doing commentaries, listeners. So we just saw this wonderful scene of the dog walking into a room with somebody who's alone in there. So did that person just get thinged?
I don't know.
Very helpful, JD. That really contributes to that.
I like to think of it as they just got fingered.
Oh, God.
I'm sorry, I couldn't resist the chance for...
We should start over this whole commentary. Just do it over again. Jesus.
No, let them hear it. I think that's why they're so popular, because we give them personality in these.
Oh, yeah, personality, sure. It's just like sitting down and watching a movie with your incoherent, rambling friends.
I mean, my ramblings are very coherent.
So here they are, they're heading towards the Norwegian camp where some bad shit just went down.
Yeah, it's like they just got done fighting an alien or something.
This film does a great job of setting up mystery, because if you go into this film and you don't know that it's about a monster from outer space that copies people,
you won't know until it happens.
At this point, you're really going to wonder what the fuck is going on, because they're going to go inside of this Norwegian camp here in a minute and see some very unusual things.
Especially if you miss like the first 30 seconds of the film, where the spaceship flies over Earth.
Well, even then, that doesn't give you an idea of what kind of alien creature this might be. And even the advertising campaign for this film kept the premise pretty close to the chest. Maybe that's why it wasn't popular when it was released in '82. It's sort of amazing to think that this film was badly received, financially, okay, sure. It came out the same summer as E.T., so maybe why that was going on. You have a very cute, cuddly version of the alien invader in one corner, and then this in the other corner. But even critically, the film was not well received at the time. And of course, now it's easily John Carpenter's most beloved film, critically speaking, even more so than the original Halloween, I think.
I don't know about all that.
It's a very different film from Halloween.
But this film, solidifies John Carpenter's place as a master of horror.
Yeah, we've had this conversation before. How many great horror films do you have to make before you're a master of horror?
I mean, that would have to depend on the film.
Yeah.
I mean, it could take 1 or it could take 10. It just depends on...
Well, you frequently see William Friedkin, director of The Exorcist, mentioned as a master of horror, even though The Exorcist is really the only horror movie he's directed that anybody remembers. I don't think The Guardian is that particularly well-liked or well-known.
I remember you mentioning The Guardian, but I've never seen it.
You've never... Oh. Killer Trees? Weird film. Anyway.
Oh, wait. I have seen that.
Yeah, the babysitter is feeding the babies to a tree.
With Camilla or whatever.
She's a dryad or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, would you consider William Friedkin a master of horror based on The Exorcist alone? It's kind of hard not to, because that is such an iconic film. But he doesn't really work in the genre all that often, aside from The Exorcist and 1 or 2 other things. I know he directed a pretty good episode of Tales from the Crypt.
Wes Craven did,
Well, Wes Craven is unquestionably...
Well, yeah, that's where I was going.
A great moment we just talked over there, where the blood frozen...
Yeah, that was cool.
The frozen icicles. I bet that scene looks great on Blu-ray.
Well, I bet it does too, Zach.
But Wes Craven has worked regularly in the genre for the majority of his career. Really, the only thing he's done that isn't horror is Music of the Heart. Red Eye, maybe. That's more of a thriller, but it still has some horror elements in it.
And most of Craven's horror stuff is pretty consistent.
Well, we did a whole episode about him, so...
So he's undoubtedly, if not the master of horror, he's definitely a master of horror.
I would put him in the pantheon of great horror directors for sure, and I would put John Carpenter in that pantheon too, even though he is not strictly a horror filmmaker. We did a whole episode about him too, but
he's not strictly a horror maker, no. But
some of his favorite films of mine are outside of the horror genre, like Big Trouble in Little China. Which sure is monsters.
Well, that could fit into
it's got horror. Monsters in it, but it's really an action comedy.
But, with Halloween and this alone, he could have been considered a master of horror.
Yeah, sure. He could have directed Halloween and The Thing, and his legacy would be secure, for certain. Though I'm certainly glad he gave us other very good films, like In the Mouth of Madness and Christine are both favorites of mine. Christine's underrated. We should do a Stephen King episode. So anyway,
I would want to do a Stephen King episode. That would be amazing.
Yeah, but do we talk about Christine on Stephen King or
well, if we're going to do Stephen King, then you got to do but if you do road horror, you got to do Christine. I don't know. We'll leave that up to the viewers.
Sure. This is the kind of conversation we have all the time, listeners. We always are discussing these sort of semantics because we really are huge nerds. So anyway, they just found a big block of ice that something crawled out of. Hey, let's actually talk about the movie that's on screen.
Well, maybe they like the idea that we're talking about John Carpenter.
And here they discover something very unusual. Some gasoline and this horribly mangled, unidentifiable corpse. Now, this time a first-time viewer has to be thinking, what the fuck is this thing? What the hell is going on?
Kind of like what the people are doing right now. Is this a man?
Well, this film does a very good job of putting the viewer in the place of the protagonist. It raises a lot of the same questions. And I like how
you see that it's a mangled body, yeah, but it almost looks, the way that they do it, and I like that, is that it almost looks like a pile of bodies that have been burned.
Yeah, you get very brief glimpses at it to the point where you really don't know what the hell you're looking at. Which, of course, I think is intentional and does a great job of piquing the viewer's curiosity and giving them a good sign of some of the imagery that's about to come.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, nodding your head the microphone doesn't pick that up. See, and now the dog's watching them. So the dog knows what's going on. The dog thing, knows that they know. So it's going to spring into action here in the near future.
which is probably will probably be like the second greatest scene that I have ever seen in a horror movie.
Well, this film has like 3 of the best scenes in a horror movie in it, and we'll discuss them as
Well,
they
I was going to
come
say,
up.
and the first one will be coming up shortly after that.
Yeah. So here we're getting a better look at the thing. Now, is really in this film, it's always seemed to me that the thing is one of the hardest to kill monsters, because no matter how much of it you destroy and burn, it seems like there's always some other part of it that gets out. And it only takes an atom, one molecule, and it can reproduce itself. So...
Well, and you were talking about how this is a remake of the original, but couldn't one argue that this is kind of like a pseudo-sequel to the original?
Well, maybe, because the original famously ends with a character saying, "Keep watching the skies." So I guess you could I guess it's possible that the original and this film could take place in the same fictional universe if you believe in a all-united fictional multiverse like I do.
I'm just saying, because...
Should I explain the all-uniting fictional multiverse?
No, don't. We only have 5-6 fans, Zach. We don't want to lose them.
The idea that all fiction could conceivably take place in the same universe, for the most part.
I mean, I feel like some things just deserve to be nerdwanked into the same universe. Like Freddy and Jason.
Or the Terminator and the Matrix movies.
Or, yeah, the Terminator and the Matrix movies.
Earlier, we're backtracking.
But that would be an easy one to do.
Well, yeah, we're backtracking here. When they had the thing on the slab, you actually saw how it was 2 faces that had separated, like a cell going into meiosis. Creepy stuff.
Mitosis.
My toes itch too, JD. Wilfred Brimley is pulling some jello out of this thing here.
Well, what we got here is what appears to be, anyway, a normal steady internal organs.
I just love the way Wilfred Brimley talks. Well, what we got here appears to be, anyway, a set of normal internal organs. He sounds like he's always selling coffee, Wilfred Brimley.
Or diabetes medication. I don't know what this diabetes is, but...
Well, it's like regular diabetes, or diabetes, but it only infects Wilfred Brimley, because he says it funny. Some beautiful color in this film. I don't think Carpenter gets enough praise for his use of color. He's talked about how Halloween was very heavily influenced by Suspiria, and in this film you can see some of that Bava or Argento-esque color too, especially in reference to the nights, of how they're sort of a cool blue or almost a purple color. Oh man, is that a beta?
That is a Betamax, isn't it?
Welcome to 1982, kids.
Yeah, smoking a joint and watching Betamax.
Are they watching porn too? Because you're hearing some porny riffs there.
I don't know, could they afford to make porn on Betamax?
I don't know, man. This was all before we were born, dude.
Because wasn't Videodrome in Betamax?
Videodrome was in video. We should... we need to find some excuse to talk about Videodrome on the podcast.
Let's not say we did.
I would love to do a David Cronenberg episode, but I don't think you're that familiar with most of his oeuvre. I mean, I know you've seen The Fly and Scanners and Videodrome, but beyond that...
Well, what else has he done?
The Brood, Nick at Lunch, Dead Ringers, The Dead Zone. I know you've seen that.
I have.
The problem with David Cronenberg is his films could really be cut up and talked about in other... Like The Fly is probably its own episode, because there's 5 movies there, and lots of references in TV and pop culture. The Dead Zone we talk about when we talk about Stephen King, so on and so forth.
Oh, all right, shut up, because there's a cool part.
Everybody shut up, because the dog's about to explode. Yeah, guys, don't worry about me. I'm just a regular dog. Look at me, I'm a dog. I'm not a alien invader from another planet. Nobody worry. It's cool. pet my head, watch my tail wing back and forth. Yeah, it's just a regular dog, he says as he walks off. Sometimes I wondered if they should make a movie that's just animals and has no people in it at all.
Yeah.
And this is a horror trope you see in a lot of fiction, where the animals realize there's something wrong with somebody.
Oh, and then the dog goes, "Surprise, motherfucker!"
Yeah, the face just split off like a flower blossom, and
Which is a really cool effect.
you've got the tongue lashing back and forth, and shit just got freaky. Can you imagine seeing this with an audience for the first time? What their reaction is when the dog's head inverts?
I can imagine there was a lot of, what the fuck?
We just crossed over into Wackyville. Now, something to talk about is how the thing has been all around the universe and has acquired DNA from alien organisms. And the most fascinating thing about the film is that the most fascinating film about the film, this is why I edit so much. The most fascinating thing about the film, the most fascinating thing about the thing, Jesus Christ, Zach, is that you get brief glimpses of other alien life. Like just there, you saw the dog thing, spraying the dog with some sort of liquid that cocoons it to a degree. And of course the spider legs, which show up in more detail later on. Fuck you guys, I'm getting out of here. Whatever happened to those dogs? That's sad. They just went out in the Arctic and froze to death. I feel bad for those dogs. But, I mean, I suppose it's probably a simple effect. They just hooked up some rubber tubes to a air compressor and let them go nuts like that. But watching it, it's so well edited and so well directed that you really get this impression of, what the hell am I looking at here? What the fuck is this thing?
Yeah, like, you really get the feeling that it's from another world, you know?
Yeah, it's almost as if it's a thing from another
Well,
world.
no, but I mean, like, it looks unworldly.
Yeah, I don't think with the possible exception of the H.R. Giger or Xenomorph alien, I think this is the most alien of any alien put on screen. And even the Xenomorph, though we love it and it's a brilliant design, it's surely one of the best monster suits ever. It's still a guy in a suit, you know?
Yeah. And, like, this is not. And it's clearly not.
It's completely unidentifiable as anything human at all.
And you could almost say that instead of there being a guy in a monster suit, this movie is very much a monster in a guy suit.
You could say that. I love this shot of the horribly deformed canine head squirming. Yeah, I think this is about the point where I freaked out as a kid. In fact, I can't even tell you the...
Yeah, like how it's shitting out its own intestines right now?
It certainly looks like intestines, doesn't it? And this poor dog is being assimilated. Spraying yellow fluid everywhere. I mean, he shot the dog. Was that necessary, McCready? Poor thing.
Well, did you want the dog to suffer while it's getting eaten?
I guess not.
I mean, I love Duke, but I promise you that if he's getting eaten by a shape-shifting alien, I'm probably going to put him out of his misery. So
okay, this is right around the time when I started to freak out, because you have these monstrous hands, and then there's something crawling up them. What the hell's going on? This is terrifying. And right about here is a moment that really has stuck with me over the years. The thing it divides, and then something comes up through it and opens up, and it's this horrible blossom of death.
Yes.
And I believe that's actually, there's supposed to be a number, that thing you just saw, it's dog tongues together, but lined with teeth, is what it's supposed to look like. Since the thing just assimilated all those dogs.
Ew. That makes it even weirder.
Yeah, for some reason. Teeth on your tongue, imagine how that. That's got to be some sort of terrifying birth defect. We'll have to Google that later. Or maybe we shouldn't.
Just Google terrifying birth defects? Let's not.
Yeah, let's not. And we were talking about the films of David Cronenberg a few minutes back, and of course Cronenberg is famous for his use of what you would call body horror, which is any sort of horror that's about the discomfort of the body, and usually deals with physical deformity or disease, weird tumors in places where tumors shouldn't be, which is really any place, is a reoccurring motif in many of Cronenberg's films. And this movie, too, I think, is a very good example of body horror, because it shows just how disgusting and disturbing the human form being distorted can be. Yeah,
The
Wilford
doctor's getting grossed out.
Is he grossed or a little too excited by what's happening here?
I mean, I was thinking grossed out.
Do you think there's something of a grotesque beauty to some of the creature design work seen here?
Well, yeah, like that's what is so great about practical effects is that they're gruesome, yet stunningly beautiful.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about Rob Bottin yet, the effects artist the effects director on this film. And of course, Bottin also did the effects for The Howling, which I think is probably his second most iconic makeup after this film. And he had worked with Carpenter before on The Fog. In fact, he actually played Blake, the pirate captain in The Fog.
Is that pirate's name?
Yes, JD, it is, you smart ass.
You know, I told you I just watched that movie for actually, when we did the podcast, that was the first time I actually sat down and watched that movie all the way through.
Wow, you'd never seen The Fog before?
Well, like, I'd seen bits and pieces, but I've never actually sat down and watched it.
Yeah, back in the day when older horror films from the 70s and 80s were still shown on television, it was real easy to catch just bits and pieces of things. I remember more than once watching the last half an hour of a movie and then waiting a few hours and watching the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Happened all the time with Halloween around Monster Fest time.
Well, I remember, this is not a horror film, but I remember...
or Fear Fest, or whatever that's
Well,
it's
it
called.
used to be Monster Fest, and now it's Fear Fest, if they even... Is it anything more but Walking Dead reruns at this point?
Well, I mean, they do stuff, but it's nowhere near as cool as it used to be.
Yeah, AMC went downhill as soon as they started showing commercials. Because they used to be commercial-free and everything was uncut, and then they started showing newer films that they had to cut for content. And then they started showing commercials, and I checked out by that point. Anyway, hey, The Thing. I love how this guy is sad that the dogs are dead, because you can tell he has this real emotional connection to the dogs. And that's... Though there isn't a lot of time for character development in this film, because it is a pretty fast-moving film. And it does have a large cast. And really the only genuine criticism I think you can make towards this film is that some of the characters are not really well-defined, but it does make time for little character moments, like the dog trainer... getting a little misty-eyed over what's happened to his dogs, which is kind of a sweet moment, I guess. The sweet's maybe the wrong word for this movie.
Well, my argument is, and I'm going to call this a sci-fi horror movie, because that's what it is.
Yeah, for sure.
In a lot of the sci-fi horror movies that have such visual effects like this, I'm sorry, and this might sound shallow of me, but I'm not in it for the character development. I want to see the next cool monster thing,
Ideally, a movie like this should have both. And I feel like this film does. MacReady is certainly a very memorable character.
Well, right, but I mean, he's the main character. That's just like Ripley's a very memorable character from the Alien franchise, but she's been in every single one, so...
For the most part. I like a lot of the characters in the original Alien, but Alien has a smaller cast in this film. I actually feel like MacReady is probably one of Kurt Russell's best performances, and he doesn't do a lot. He's...
Oh no, I'm a Snake man all the way.
Well, Snake is great, and I love Jack Burton too.
Well, yeah.
Most of the performances he gave for John Carpenter are pretty awesome. Even that Elvis telemovie they did back in the 70s.
Yeah, but outside of a Carpenter movie, a lot of times he's not that great of an actor.
It's not that he's not bad, but he's not well utilized from time to time. And I agree with you. All his most memorable performances are in John Carpenter movies. I mean, the only thing I can ever really think of... I mean, of course, he got his start in Disney films in the 70s. The Strongest Boy in the World and The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes, things like that. But, in fact, here's a weird factoid. The last thing Walt Disney ever said before he died was Kirk Russell, because he was the big Disney teen star at the time.
Okay.
Kind of weird and ominous there. So they've just found the spaceship, the Thing's craft. Now, do you think the Thing has a original state?
I mean, I would assume so.
Well, it's an interesting thing. When a creature is a total shapeshifter and is always collecting genetic attributes from other species, it does raise the question, does the Thing have an original form? And if it does, what does it look like? Is the Thing in its original shape just a microscopic organism?
I've always kind of took it as the Thing itself, because I noticed the different nuances of different alien species and things like that.
Yeah, like the spider legs.
Right. So, I always kind of took it as the Thing was the last of its species.
Well, that's an interesting theory, because it is basically a parasite. And I can see it perhaps developing its genetic ability as an evolutionary thing to survive. Perhaps, hey, see, this is an interesting conversation we're having.
So, I view it as, maybe it flies from world to world to world to try and acquire different skills, different forms, different whatnot. And I just feel like it's, it only takes a molecule for it to regenerate or reproduce, I guess, if you will. But I don't feel like it's. I feel like it has to gain so much material before it can completely separate into two different entities.
Well, I'm sorry, Keith David talking about voodoo bullshit. That raises another question. Is the Thing intelligent in any sort of human sense? Does it have an intellect? Or
you said yourself, like when it was taking the form of the dog, it was watching them and figured out that it has been caught.
Perhaps. I did say that, didn't I? That's on video even. But, I mean, does the Thing have an intelligence in the sense that it has a cunning? Or is it more of just a very simple animalistic intelligence? I mean, it's basically almost like a virus or a cancer that's living, in the sense that it collects what it needs and infects everything that it needs and then moves on. Damn, this commentary got heady fast.
I'm just saying that, the Thing itself is either the last of its kind, or maybe
it's a one of a kind.
Well, not a one of a kind, but maybe its home planet kind of sent it out to...
Well, that's ominous, isn't it?
To infest other worlds.
Because John Carpenter refers to this as the first part of his Apocalypse trilogy. And this movie is not really explicitly apocalyptic, but it is once you think about how if the Thing had landed in a populated area instead of the Arctic...
So wait, what's the other?
Prince of Darkness and In the Mouth of Madness. Those are the other two films in the Apocalypse trilogy. And those two films... Well, it sort of progresses, because this movie is like... And I might have made this exact same point on our Carpenter episode. But this movie is like the beginning of Apocalypse. And in Prince of Darkness, the apocalypse comes just this close to happening before it's beaten back. Maybe. That's kind of an ambiguous film. But then, In the Mouth of Madness, you see the world end. Did you ever see In the Mouth of Madness, by the way?
Maybe I didn't.
You need to see that one. That one's great. It's the best HP Lovecraft movie ever made, which is impressive considering it's not actually based off of an HP Lovecraft story. But presents so many of his themes. And
I'd like to see a good Cthulhu movie.
yeah, we've never really got... The closest one was the Call of Cthulhu. Well, it was a silent film, but it was made like in 2008, but it was done in the style of a film from the 20s. And that's probably the best direct Lovecraft adaptation. Things like Reanimator and From Beyond, which are movies I like a lot, really take a lot of liberties with the text. They're not very representative of what Lovecraft's shtick was overall. The point is, yes, I agree with you. We need a good Cthulhu movie. When Cloverfield was coming out, that was one of the things people said, like, oh man, is it Cthulhu? And I would have liked to have seen that, just a movie about him destroying the cities and shit. That'd be cool. No doubt about it.
I mean, I don't think we'll ever be to the point where we will actually see Cthulhu on screen, but
Yeah, because Lovecraft has yet to really cross over into the mainstream pop culture in that sense.
well, the Creature from the Black Lagoon and all of its rip-offs.
Yeah, all of those.
And isn't there a Dagon movie?
There is a Dagon movie, and it's pretty good. But
I mean, I've never seen it, but
oh, you should check it out. Lovecraft is as an episode we're going to do someday. I'm going to make you watch Reanimator and Dagon and From Beyond, and we'll do a whole episode about Lovecraft-based films. That's going to happen for sure.
I mean, I feel like I should read Lovecraft before I watch the movie.
Well, Lovecraft his text can be dense. You know, it's important to remember that he was a pulp writer, and they got paid by the penny, or they got paid by the word. They got a penny a word. And so his text is difficult to get through sometimes, and he uses a lot of antiquated words, like very famously eldritch is a word he throws about, squamous, these things. That sound like stuff he made up, but actually...
Eldritch abomination.
Yeah. Boy, words all over the map. Check out that guy's Jerry curls. Look at him go.
It's Jufro. That's racist.
I mean, we don't know if he's Jewish, but I'm willing to bet he is. We got a good close-up on the burned thing's face there, and you saw that its mouth actually had two tongues that had been fused together inside of it.
Yeah, that's gross.
Think about having your tongue fused with somebody else's tongue. That wouldn't be fun, would it?
Did you see that thing fucking moving?
I didn't see it move. Is there sort of an undulating thing underneath the blanket?
Did you see it?
Yeah, okay. This is kind of similar to a scene in the original. Because in the original thing, they bring in the block of ice, they put an electric blanket over it, and that's how it melts and gets out. So this image of something being covered by a blanket about to escape is probably, doubtlessly inspired by the original. Here's some of that color I was talking about earlier, the blues and the purples.
Yes. Yes, it's very, very Argento-like.
Perhaps. I would suspect that was an inspiration. And something we haven't talked about because we've been yammering about a bunch of other stupid shit is the sense of isolation this movie creates. And it's hard to get that when you're watching it with a buddy and talking over it like we are. But
No, I mean, you still get it, because, you know, they keep trying the radio, can't get a hold of anybody, and, you know, if they want to escape from the rest of the people, they have to, and escape, I mean, just take a breath and get away from everybody else. They have to go and sit out and,
this, caterpillar or snow mover.
Yeah.
Ski Dozer 301, it says right there.
Ski Dozer 301.
This is a creepy image. You just see the bloody clothes on the chair. Great electronic score here. And then he turns over, slow pan. And
what the fuck?
And you hear that sound design first, that kind of slimy, crawling noise. And you see this image, which is brief enough that you really do wonder, wait, what the fuck was going on there? That guy he was shirtless, he was covered in blood, he had weird, vaguely intestinal-looking tendrils wrapping around him.
Man, that scared the shit out of that guy so damn bad, he didn't even bother to put his coat on.
And I think it's a fair thing to say that being assimilated by the thing would probably be painful.
I mean, it would have to be, right?
I mean, you're having your genetic code copied forcefully. This is another image that has always stuck with me coming up in a few minutes here where Benning is going to turn. Yeah, here it is. And his hands are very strange looking. He has these, and then he lets out this unearthly wail. In fact, I bet the viewers can even hear it in the background. And of course, they're going to set him the fuck on fire, because what the hell else are you going to do when you see that?
Right?
But something about that, I mentioned body horror before, and the way his hands looked. You know, there was this was going around on the internet years ago, this Peruvian tree man, this person who had some sort of disease that caused warts to grow uncontrollably on his body. So and they called him the tree man because he looked like a tree root, and that's what that reminds me of. And that's real life horror. So just mull that over in your brain for a minute there, what that would be like.
Do it, Captain. Sorry.
And we gotta burn the rest of them because McCree doesn't give a shit. He's ice cold.
I'm an ice cold motherfucker. Motherfucker.
So, wow, look at the color of that gasoline.
And then what they don't tell you later is that they all froze to death because they couldn't access any of their vehicles to...
Well, it's okay because most of these characters aren't going to be alive for very long anyway.
You know, why didn't they just get in the helicopter and fly away?
The helicopter got blown up in the beginning.
There's a helicopter right there in the background, Zach.
I don't believe you. Hey, why don't we just rewind and pause and zoom in? No, we can't do that.
See it? See the blade?
I don't see a helicopter. That's the roof.
No, it's not.
This is illuminating.
It's a chopper. Why don't they get to the chopper? Get to the chopper now!
Okay. That's a great shot, panning up from the fire.
To see the helicopter blade there in the fire.
There's no goddamn helicopter. But even then, if they left, would that really end the movie? Because one of them is infected at this point, if not more than one. So do we want them getting back to civilization?
Yeah?
Because then we have a badass movie, wouldn't we?
Yes.
A more badass movie. This movie's pretty badass to begin with. Because it's just macho dudes out being macho, fighting monsters in the wilderness. Oh, yeah.
Where's everybody else? Windows is in the radio room, still trying to get through. Everyone else is in the rec room. You go on, I'll be in a minute.
Clearly, MacReady is shaken by what he's just witnessed. And I guess having one of your friends turn into a horrible tumor monster and then setting him on fire would not really sit well with you.
Well, Zach, I can promise you one thing. If you're infected by an evil alien shapeshifter, I'll set you on fire.
And I would do the same for you, buddy.
Aw. That was a bromant.
That was a bromant? Oh, hey, look, there's a helicopter.
Yeah. What was that?
Well, I believe, hasn't the thing damaged it? He's going to pull his tarp up and... Because obviously they're completely isolated. There's no way out of here. Yeah. See? I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So shut the fuck up, JD. You're wrong. Oh, is this the scene where Brimley goes crazy? This is one of the best moments in the movie. I mean, except for, like, the monsters and shit. Here's some great John Carpenter Steadicam action here. Yeah. POV shots. It's a trademark of his. Yep.
You smashed up some of the chopper pretty good. Child, go see if you got the tractor. Nobody
Watch out, guys, or you'll get brimleyed.
Well, yeah, but isn't he possessed by the alien at this time?
I don't think he's actually possessed yet. Or infiltrated, possessed, infected, whatever word you want to use. I think he's just... he's the scientist, so his thought is, I gotta isolate everybody, or else the thing will get out and destroy the world.
Well, yeah, but his belly opens up and stuff, right?
Yeah, that happens at the end, though. That doesn't happen until the very end. And that's one of the questions of this movie, when is somebody infected? When does the infection begin? Who is infected? Fans of this film have debated that pretty much since it came out.
Yeah, don't some people debate that Kurt Russell's actually infected at the end of the movie?
Well, I didn't really want to talk about it yet because we haven't gotten to the end yet. But yeah, there is this debate about it at the end of the film where it's MacReady and Childs, and which one's the thing? One of them's the thing. And there's actually this YouTube video, God bless the internet, where somebody went through the entire film looking for hints that Childs is the thing and MacReady is the only human left at the end of the movie. And I actually have a comic book that was published by Dark Horse that is a continuation of the film, which follows with that assumption that MacReady is still human, but Childs is the thing. And it's not a bad comic, at least the first 2 issues, but I really prefer the ambiguity. I like not knowing.
Yeah, probably.
I think it adds to the film.
My brain likes to think that Kurt Russell is actually the alien.
Yeah, well, because that's another thing. Do people know when they've been infected?
Exactly.
Aw, now the dog guy's pissed because Wilfred Brimley killed his dogs. I mean, this is something else they're going to put... I can't think of the character's name because we've been talking over the damn movie instead of listening to it. But they're going to put Wilfred Brimley's character out in this isolation shack, and at any point from here on, towards the end of the movie, he could have been infected. But I think that he actually is human at this point. And his outburst is because he's trying to save the
I
human
disagree.
race.
I think he's infected.
Well, we'll just have to agree to disagree on that one, buddy.
Well, no. I mean, that just makes more sense. Why would he be this very logical...
Well, he is being logical. He has to destroy the computers and destroy the helicopters or else...
Okay, but he's a very logical, well-grounded individual. And he's also a scientist who just was just had his hand inside of an alien pod filled with twisted horror and looked at it and was like, this is interesting.
Well, it is pretty interesting.
But what I'm saying is...
Something else I want to bring up. Totally cut you off there.
Yeah, well, don't cut me off. And don't pat my belly. I'm not Buddha.
Something else is when the other people are infected, they don't act that way. They act like they've always acted.
Well, right, because the thing has already infected him and had him go in there and kill all of the communication.
Well, that's the question. Is he destroying the communication because he's trying to protect them, or is he destroying the communication because he's the thing, and he's trying to isolate them even more?
That one.
Oh, I believe that's up to debate.
Well, it could be up to debate all you want it to be, but deep down, I'm right.
And I believe the characters on screen are discussing pretty much this exact same thing. How do we know we aren't all the thing?
Some kind of test, Doc? Well, yeah, possibly. I've been thinking about a blood serum test. What's that? You could take a sample.
Are we sure that we haven't all been the thing all along? What a twist. They Shyamalan'd us on that one.
Yeah, but this movie's way better than any Shyamalan movie.
I mean, The Sixth Sense and Unbreakable are both pretty good. But yeah, this movie's better than both of those.
And I like Signs. It's got at least 3 good films.
Oh, no, Signs is good. We'll talk about Signs whenever we do Alien Invasions as a topic.
That's got to be coming up, right?
Yeah, probably at some point.
I mean, we're going to do that this year, right? Or next year, I mean.
Sure.
Because there's When Mars Attacks, there's...
War of the Worlds, Independence Day. Lots of movies from the 50s. This is very similar to a scene from the original where they open up a small freezer and a dog has been inside. And the dog falls out and there is some blood. Because in the original thing, the thing is a bloodsucker.
Somebody opens it, closed it, and locked it in the ring. Who's got access to it? Guess I'm the only one. I got the only key.
Have you seen the clip on YouTube? It's called The Thing, the musical.
No.
And it's kind of a Frank Sinatra number, but...
Oh, I think I have seen that.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's from the same guys who did Conan the Barbarian, the musical, and a bunch of Arnold musicals. It's pretty amazing.
Let it go. Let it go.
When was the last time you used it? A day or so ago, I guess.
And here the paranoia is really taking over. People are accusing each other. And now we've reached the point where the characters aren't sure who they can trust anymore. Which is kind of the main dramatic thrust of the film. You know, some people see this film as a social commentary on the Cold War era.
I don't think that's fair.
Well, this movie was made right in the middle of the Cold War era. And maybe that's in there.
Yeah, but people are just saying that because it was made in that era and it takes place in the Arctic.
Okay.
Cold.
Are you suggesting Russia's cold?
Cold-hearted, maybe.
Uh-oh. I hope Vladimir Putin isn't listening.
I hope he is. Vladimir Putin is pooping.
You know, very cutting edge. Cutting edge humor here on the Bangers and Mash show this week. But I feel like
slapper.
I feel like there is some decent... There is a case to be made this movie just kind of about a sense of disquiet and untrust, which was doubtlessly in the air at the time when, you know, the world could be away from nuclear annihilation at any minute, really. All it would have taken is somebody putting their finger on the button.
I don't know about color.
I'm real glad we didn't grow up in a... I mean, I was paranoid enough as a kid about the world ending. I didn't need to think that, you know, the Russians were going to bomb us, going to Red Dawn us at any minute.
Yeah.
But I saw a movie called The Day After as a young kid, and that had a profound effect on me. It's my dad's fault. My dad showed me all these end-of-the-world movies as I was a kid. I think he was preparing me for the end. Anyway.
I don't think I've ever seen The Day After.
Well, you know, nuclear apocalypse film.
I need to see some more apocalypse movies.
Yeah, that's another show topic. Half of this commentary is just going to be like, hey, we should do a show about that. You know, when I first turned to JD and said, hey, JD, let's do a podcast, which has been 3 years ago now, man.
Yeah, pretty much.
We made up a list of show topics we wanted to do, and we should find that list and go through it and see how many of those we've gotten to, how many we've checked off at this point.
You mean that list of like 300 show topics we had?
It wasn't 300.
All right, 299.
Right now, so some of you are still human. This thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside an imitation.
This thing doesn't want to show itself.
It'll fight if it has to, but it's vulnerable out in the open. If it takes us over,
We're getting some full-on Kirk Russell monologue here.
nobody left to kill it.
This is premium Kurt.
And it's won.
You know, the
6 hours.
faculty kind of puts you in mind of this movie, but not as good, of course. But
Oh, yeah, this was doubtlessly an influence on the faculty. In fact, on our High School Horror episode, if you remember, we talked about how the faculty, the scene where they're all doing coke, is, I think, a parody of the blood test scene, which should be coming up soon, which is certainly one of the best scenes in this film.
oh yeah,
You want to get flamethrowed, bitch? That's right, I didn't think so. One of the effective things about this film is the use of sound, the wind, the Arctic wind constantly blowing outside. And I think that's one of the things that adds to that sense of isolation and disquiet. Because nothing
And the ominousness of it.
Ominous atmosphere. Nothing really makes you more uneasy than just listening to a really heavy wind blow outside.
You know, that ghostly wind, if you will.
Well, especially here at my home, where trees have fallen on my house twice from being blown down from heavy winds. So heavy wind tends to make me uneasy.
Quit squirming, it's coming up on the mic.
Yeah, that's the sound of my ass you're going to hear. Sorry, viewers.
He's not sorry.
And might as well, for this, since this is as loose as an episode ever is with us, I'll figure out before I head this out. I've been thinking about putting the show, the Bangers and Mash show, on Bandcamp, or there are other websites like that where people can post. They're for music, but you can post any MP3 file, and that would be a way for our listeners to actually download the show as an MP3. I know, in fact, I suspect the majority of our regular listeners download the show as an MP3 file using using a program that rips YouTube videos to MP3, which is fine. I'm not mad about that by any means. Whatever, however you prefer, I don't care. But I think maybe I don't know. Hey, so if you're listeners, let us know if the show being on Bandcamp or another free MP3 host is a good idea.
Totally.
This is a great shot. The guy in the foreground and Kirk coming through the door in the background.
Up with anything yet?
Oh.
One or two ideas.
And now everybody in the film is very edgy. Because they don't know who to trust, man.
A small particle of this thing is enough to take over an entire organism. And everyone should prepare their own meals. And I suggest we only eat out of cans.
Have you ever eaten straight out of a can?
Yeah.
Like Spam or...
No, not Spam.
As a kid, I loved Vienna sausages. I would just eat those straight out of the can.
Yeah, but nowadays you eat them and we're like, oh god, I can't believe I ate these as
I know,
a kid.
they're absolutely disgusting, aren't they?
Yeah. And then you get that congealed fat around them.
Oh, yeah. Here's some great blue lighting here, for sure. Boy, this has been an interesting conversation we've had, isn't it? Talking about horror movies 1 minute and Vienna sausages the next. Good jump scare. This isn't I don't know, would you say this movie is heavy on jump scares or not? Because there's certainly a lot of stuff jumping out, but I don't think they qualify as jump scares when they're built up into that level.
No, I don't think it's heavy on the jump scares.
I wouldn't, but that one in particular where the form crossed the camera and you had that musical sting, I think that counts as a jump scare. But one of few. And just the color in this scene is great. I love the blues. I love the sort of ominous reds and purples.
Anybody see Fuchs?
Check out Kirk's mullet in this movie. Man, that's intense.
Lights around here for an hour.
It's not a mullet.
I don't know. It looks like it's party in the back to me.
No. Why don't you come with me and we'll look
It's not a mullet. It's just long hair.
I think, everybody...
It's very well groomed long hair, but it's long hair.
I don't know how well groomed it is. Something you'll notice, all the characters in this movie are kind of ungroomed because they've been out here for a while. Cut the bullshit! Yeah, that Duke! Everybody listen to me. I've got the cowboy hat.
Hear anything at all, you cut loose on the siren. We all meet back here in 20 minutes regardless. And everybody watch whoever you're with. Real close.
Gotta love the one you're with.
I always remember the defibrillator scene being much earlier in the movie than it is. But it hasn't happened yet. When are we going to get to the defibrillator scene?
Was that where the belly is has the teeth?
Oh, yeah. You know it.
I don't want to stay out here
What a great scene. I don't want to stay out here anymore. I want to come back inside. And the noose is framed perfectly through the hole in the door.
I'm not gonna harm anybody. There's nothing wrong with me. And if there was, I'm all better now. I'd like to come back inside. Now you got my promise.
I don't know if I would ever believe Wilford Brimley saying he's all better now. He always seems on edge.
Hey, wait a minute.
Even during those diabetes commercials.
I want to come back inside, don't you understand? I'm all right. I'm much better. And I won't harm anybody. You gotta let me come back inside.
That's a no. Not that I want them to, but if they do a straight remake of this movie, they should have that part should be played by John Goodman. And not just because they're both big guys. But can you imagine how great he'd be in that scene?
Oh, yeah.
I'm all better now. I can come back inside.
Well, that is, of course, if, they actually have a director that's not afraid to direct John Goodman.
Okay, we're getting off topic here. So did Fuchs set himself on fire, or did the Thing get him?
The Thing got him?
I'm pretty sure he set himself on fire. Damn, this movie's full of mysteries.
Hey, Zach, the sky is blue.
What? Is the sky really blue, man, or is that just how we observe the sky? That was me smoking a joint. Not really.
The grass is green?
Is anything really the way it is, or is that just how we observe it to be, man? Like, far out, dude.
Black.
Black? What about black? You just said black. That's racist.
I was waiting for you to say white, because you've been saying the opposite of everything I say.
I'm really sorry, guys. Of course, we know this guy's the Thing. The dude in the turtleneck is infected.
Spoiler alert!
Yeah, we know that to be true, so... Let's watch what he's doing here. See if it gives us any clues. Man, what would you do if you were isolated in a place like that?
Jack off a lot.
Well, that's the honest truth, isn't it?
Where's McGrady?
I thought you knew something lined up by the shack.
Hi, Blue.
Yeah, we're out checking around this place. I found this. Look. It was stashed in his old oil furnace. Wind must have dislodged it, but I don't think he saw me find it.
So who did this? Obviously, the Thing is trying to discredit McCready. If you believe that McCready isn't the Thing, anyway.
Well, I believe he's not the Thing at this time.
Okay. So who had opportunity to sneak off and plant this piece of incriminating evidence? I guess there's just going to be a lot of us just actually sitting here watching the movie on this commentary, isn't it?
Yeah, because, at this point in time, you really start to get into it. You know?
You're really getting drawn in by the paranoia.
Which is something that makes this a very strong film.
Well, yeah.
Damn it. He's got the keys. If only I was the voice of the Navy right now.
And of course, Keith David was in another John Carpenter film, They Live. Did you ever see They Live? You know, Roddy Piper with the glasses and the aliens and the 15-minute fight scene in the back alley.
Yeah, I think I did.
The movie where the line all out of bubblegum comes from?
Go on, John. Burn me.
Yeah, I think so.
You sound real certain. This is how badass McCready is. He's willing to blow everybody up just to prove that he isn't a monster.
Back off. Way off.
What do you think of the snow and the beard look? Is that badass?
That's pretty badass.
Yeah. That's why the best Chewbacca action figure was the one that was the Hoff Chewbacca that had the snow on him.
The same thing. Don't argue well.
Anyway.
Or the rest.
It's cool, man. Come on.
I mean, when you think about it, Chewbacca is just a guy covered in a beard. He's like a walking beard.
I'm sure what's his name is glad to hear this.
What's his name?
You know, the voice of
I have no idea who you're talking about.
the voice of Chewbacca. The,
Oh, you mean Peter something? Peter Mayhew
thank you.
is the guy who played Chewbacca. Why do you assume Peter Mayhew is listening? I think he's got better things to do, like, I don't know, his laundry or something. So anyway, The Thing. This is a good movie.
Yes, it is.
Oh, here's the defibrillator scene. Yay! Now, one of my favorite elements of the scene, and I guess I'll talk about it when it happens, because right now McCready is freaking out, something hardcore.
We left you prisoner over here.
You're gonna have to sleep sometime, Nicole.
Real light sleeper, child. He tries to wake me.
Okay. Nothing, but he's going to try it one more time. Oh, there it goes! Yeah! Oh, man, and the...
Oh, no. Arms rip
teeth,
off, and the teeth.
the teeth, they don't look like teeth. They look like calcified bones or some shit. And there's going to be these weird yellow giblets flashing around, and
Oh, God, and green slime.
this horrible thing comes out. I actually have an action figure of this version of The Thing. It's one of the movie maniacs. And this is probably my favorite version of The Thing in this movie. And then, this is fucking amazing. The head tears off, and just why are the innards green? Why are they green? And the head's still screaming while it's detached.
Well, it detaches from itself, no less.
And you have the whip tongue. I mean, this is just some seriously demented imagery here. I mean, you really got to admire the balls of not just John Carpenter for writing this and wanting to put this on screen, but the people who actually created it, and just how mind-blowing the effects in this film are.
I mean, they're a classic. You know, that's the only way to describe it. And the fact that they just... What is so great about the effects in this movie is that, unlike the effects in any other movie, is how fucking realistic they look.
Oh, yeah, incredibly realistic. And we just saw maybe the most famous image from this film, the spider head.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a creepy as fuck image. This decapitated head with these eye stalks and these big spider legs. It's trying to get away. It's like, hey, don't mind me, guys. I'm just a horrible monstrosity trying to escape. I mean, it is kind of funny because it's like, oops, you caught me. or maybe we're just laughing because this is such a incredibly grotesque sequence. And I mean that in the best way possible. It's a good kind of grotesque. Not like a Rob Zombie grotesque where you just get sick of it.
Right, like it's just... And again, I can't get over how realistic they look. Like, I don't even think that I could look at those not on film. Like, look at them face to face and be like, those are just practical effects.
Well, it's hard to tell because, the way it's filmed and shot has so much to do with it. And I think I've mentioned before the sound design in this movie and the weird, gross noises the thing make is such an important part of what makes this film work. But it's all latex and rubber and tubes. It's amazing. I have no idea how.
Well, I remember you and I having a conversation about the remake or the requel or whatever you want to call it.
I'm growing fond of the phrase requel.
But we would watch it and like the one scene in the trailer where the hand like folded up and turned into a spider thing or something. We were watching that and I was like, why does this modern day movie look cheaper than a film made 20 years ago? Right, and I was like, and they did all that in the thing with practical effects and didn't use any CGI.
And I remember you saying exactly that to me while we were watching the trailer. I don't even remember what movie we saw that the trailer was in front of. I don't even remember what year that movie came out of, but...
Well, yeah, that's what I was telling. Like, I seem to remember making that comment.
Yeah.
Like, they did that stuff with practical effects back when they made this movie. And my argument is if you're going to use CGI, it should be for something that you can't accomplish with practical effects.
In my opinion, CGI should always be used to add to a scene, never to just... Like, I think it's best if you have a creature in a film, it's a practical creature, and then perhaps you use CGI to enhance little things that you can't do.
Or give it wings, or...
Something like that, there's so much of this temptation just to do everything in computers these days, and I think the best films is done with balance of the two. Or maybe we're just saying that because we're nerds and we like monsters.
Well, I mean, I feel like CGI does work better in some films because would the Hulk have been as awesome as the Hulk was in the Avengers if it wasn't for CGI?
I mean, you couldn't do it with real effects. It would just look ridiculous. Anyway, we're coming up to it's hard to say if this is the third or fourth best scene in the film or if it's the blood test scene, which is, if you want to talk about jump scares, maybe one of the best of all time. This is a good example of what I call measured suspense, where the film really just keeps tightening and tightening until you're just about ready to jump out of your seat, and then it gives you a big shock to pay off. And it's a fascinating idea, too, that the thing's intelligence extends down to every molecule. So if you were to threaten it just as blood, it would react. But if you're teaching a class about making suspense work in movies, they should probably just show this scene because you have a layer of expectations. And the audience knows that something's going to happen when that hot cable goes into one of those petri dishes of blood. But you don't know which one it's going to be. So,
right, and then they'll do things like that guy there was actually like he was getting ready to freak out.
Yeah.
And here it was just, he didn't know if he was contaminated or not.
Yeah.
So he was, and then you see like the sigh of relief. And then doesn't he like instantly get bitten or something?
I think he gets his head torn off or whatever.
Crock of shit. Let's try the Doc and Clark. Now, Clark.
And a really smart thing Carpenter does is every time McCready pokes the blood with the hot cable. He frames it in a similar way. So again, it's just another way of measuring the audience's expectations and doing everything you can to catch them off guard.
I thought you'd feel that way, Gary. You were the only one that could have gotten that blood. We'll do you last.
There it is! Now that's a moment I wish I could freeze frame and rewind. Like, what the hell is that thing that pops out of the Petri dish? Because it goes by so quickly, you don't even... And this is another fantastic moment where the eyes are bulging out and blood's running down the face.
Now, you're talking about how you have the spider head action figure. I had the other thing.
Well, that's from the end of the film. I believe that's the Norris, or is that Blair? I mean, like, he falls backwards into the ceiling as if gravity is reversed. And then, oh my god, the head splits into this giant mouth. Amazing. Absolutely. And it's just, it seems like, to me, that's one of the most painful ways to die in a horror film. Having your head torn apart by a terrible thing from another world.
I'm sorry.
And I guess the effects there aren't the best looking because it does look a little bit like a dummy, but I mean the flailing corpse, not the burning man. I mean, what a sick bastard. Who would even think about putting this shit on screen? This movie is... You know, I remember reading, and this scene here, of the burning man exploding through the wall and running into the
right
wilderness.
Out of the original.
Yes, it is, yeah. Very much so. Blows them the fuck up.
Get the fuck out of my house.
Anyway, what I was going to say is, years ago I remember reading an article on Cracked that talked about the secret meanings behind famous horror characters, why you're afraid of these characters. And it made some valid points. It talks about how, you know, creepy dolls are frightening because they remind us of babies, and we're all afraid of the responsibility of parenthood. Things like that, like Jason and Leatherface are scary because you can't see their faces, and that makes them inhuman. And then the number one item on the list was The Thing _ creepy, scary, fucked up shit.
Well, I mean, that's why it's scary.
It just puts these amazingly grotesque things on screen that, as we've said before, we don't even, you know, it's hard to believe they're created. They just look so realistic and natural. I don't know how this movie didn't win an Oscar for special effects. Just because it really, you know,
It's because it's a horror movie.
Well, yeah, you know, unfortunately, that's the truth. Horror is looked down on more often than not. Though, you know, occasionally... Though I think wasn't American Werewolf in London 81? So that was the year before this movie, and that won an Oscar. So I don't know.
Well, you know, I mean, I know it has the werewolf thing in it, but really...
Well, American Werewolf is also a comedy, and it was directed by John Landis, who was a respected filmmaker, though it's not as if Carpenter wasn't a respected filmmaker at the time, too. So I don't know. It's just... Maybe... What, is he going to yell about being tied to this fucking couch?
I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter
Tied to this fucking couch! I mean, I don't blame the guy. Nobody likes to be tied to fucking couches.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if I was going to be tied to a couch, hopefully it's one that's not into fucking.
Yep, that was me.
Child, we're going out and get Blair to test. He tried to
Blair! That's Wilfred Brimley.
I could have been doing Navy commercials, but no, I got to deal with this fucking alien bullshit.
So by this point, Blair is definitely the thing. We know that now. But I maintain that it's ambiguous when exactly he is infected.
I'm telling you that he was infected before they put him in there.
Well, that's like your
And I don't
opinion,
think,
man.
and I don't think that it is ambiguous for the simple reason
Okay, this is how stupid I am. We didn't bring this up earlier. We were even talking about HP Lovecraft, and we didn't talk about the Lovecraft elements in this movie. Now, like I said, Carpenter is a fan of Lovecraft. I mean, he made In the Mouth of Madness, which is a homage to Lovecraft's work, and probably one of Lovecraft's most famous stories is At the Mountains of Madness, which is about people go to the Arctic and they find the remains of this alien society, and there are fucked up monsters in there that want to kill them, basically. Guillermo del Toro has been trying to make a movie out of that for about a decade now. And this film, I think, features some pretty deliberate references to At the Mountains of Madness, because it's a pretty similar premise. You know, people are in the Arctic and they find alien remains, which then proceed to turn into fucked up monsters and try to kill them.
Sure.
And there's going to be an image coming up here soon where you see some tentacles writhing underneath the ground, which is a pretty good visual synthesis of everything Lovecraft was about as a writer.
Tentacles underground?
Well, terrifying things from another place trying to push into our world. I like how he has built the flying saucer out of whatever was lying around. Here's some more wonderful Carpenter POV shots. And that great
Boom, boom.
Morricone score. Yeah. Boom, boom.
Boom, 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 boom.
Just creates a very ominous sense.
Sense of a heartbeat.
It does, and I think that's deliberate. It's an easy trick when you're trying to create tension in something. Well, it can be done badly, but just invoking the heartbeat is a good way to get the viewer's own heartbeat to start pumping up.
Anyhow, I maintain that Wilford Brimley got infected when he was elbows deep into an alien-infested specimen.
Perhaps. I guess we'll just argue about that until the end of time. Or until we both die. Not that I'm planning on doing that anytime soon.
Well, I was getting ready to say, I feel like the end of time would come before that. Although that sucks. Would you really want to be around for the end of time?
Well, since we're talking about apocalypse movies, vaguely, not really, no, I don't want to see the... And that's something, I just said this on Twitter last night. The reason I lost interest in the zombie genre is because it has degraded from a way, those original George Romero zombie movies, and we are super off topic now, are, about critiquing society's woes. Why now the zombie genre has degraded into this survivalist fantasy. People want to go out and shoot zombies and ride around in doom tanks. And that just isn't as interesting to me.
No, it's not.
We're not getting out of here.
And I'm not...
Hey, look, the thing.
Yeah, sure.
There's Keith David being an Arctic ninja.
That was the other black guy. That wasn't Keith David. Oh, that was a little racist. That was the other black guy.
Bada bing, bada boo.
Yeah, there's some good explosions in this film. That spaceship blew up real good.
Mm-hmm, that's right. Boom, boom.
Boom, boom.
Boom, 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 boom.
It's more of that blue coloring. Once you notice it, you just can't stop noticing it.
There's a lot of light flares in this movie.
Well, yeah, I think that's because fire plays such an important role in the film. So much of it is about the fire reflecting off of the snow and the ice. You have this intensity of the orange against the smoothness of the white, and I think it makes for a really fantastic visual contrast. This is the kind of shit JD has to listen to me say all the time.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, Uma.
Thanks for kicking my dog.
I didn't kick your dog. I just put my foot down on top of her head.
Generator room.
Kurt Russell's like, I got this bitch.
Well, even speaking of the coloration, you can even see like the blue from the window or the door downstairs. It just makes for a really fascinating to look at film. I don't think Carpenter is talked about enough as a visual filmmaker. People focus a lot on his skills as a tension builder and a story writer, which are, you know, very good as well, but visually I feel all of his films are quite striking.
Well, you know, you talk about how in this film he, you know, imitates Argento.
There is, I think Argento it was an influence on this movie, at least in its color palette.
And, you know, the way that he chooses to shoot certain shots, you know, the angles and stuff that he does, they seem to really add to the overall, I guess, performance of the movie.
Yeah, though it's a little different. I think Carpenter and Argento have different goals in mind with the way they shoot.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was just talking about for the color with Argento.
Yeah.
I was talking about, like, in this movie, how he shoots certain shots and stuff to really add to the effect. You know, like, you know, the top-down, you know, view that he did for the head
Yeah.
versus the very kind of off to the side of the screen shot of the thing popping up out of the blood, you know?
Yeah.
He shows you what you need to see, I guess, is kind of how I want to put that.
Well, and he's always been that way, because he does the same thing in Halloween.
Well, right, but I was going to point out the difference in Halloween is that Halloween does a lot of POV shots, which you said he's known for.
Well, yeah, and there are some of those in this film as well.
Well, right, but there's a lot more of it. In Halloween, there's a lot more of the lurking shot, you know, where it kind of follows, you know, where...
Oh, yeah, well, that's a deliberate thing he does in Halloween to sort of suggest the presence of Michael Myers even when he's off screen. We did a whole episode about that movie, too.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, he really knows how to utilize the camera to really make you feel like you're part of the movie. Like,
Oh, yeah, speaking of jump scares. Oh, you just got Brimley, brother. It's all over for you, son. What the hell is he doing here? Is he sticking his hands through his cheeks, or did he stick his fingers into his mouth and he's pushing them out of his cheeks?
I think he pushed them into his cheeks.
Well, either way, it looks unpleasant.
But, you know, in Halloween, he has the mask with the two circles, and you hear the hard breathing.
Yeah.
You know, so, like, he really knows how to utilize the camera to scare the shit out of you.
It's sort of what he's most well known for. Here's some quiet before it gets real heavy again.
Yes. The calm before the storm, if you will.
Yeah, because now we know that they're down there with Blair, who's definitely infected. So it's just a moment of waiting for when the shit's going to hit the fan.
And there's the snow in the beard again.
It looks cool, no doubt about it.
I wonder why I haven't gotten a figure of that.
Well, you know, the only figure they've done of McCready was Soda, or SOTA Toys, did a box set of the dog thing with McCready and the shotgun. And it's something fans, or people who collect horror movie toys, have long requested a good figure of Kurt as McCready. It's something a certain portion of the population wants. I don't know if it's enough of a population to support that, unfortunately. That's sort of where we are as collectors now. Just okay, great. I love this. The boards bouncing up. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. That's a terrifying thought too. Something coming out of the ground you're under. Yeah, here I was. This is the Lovecraft shot. Yeah, the tentacles coming out of the ground. And we're about to get a good look at the Blair monster right here. The side of the head is this weird, and it's supposed to be like a dog head that's been... God damn it! Can we get through one fucking commentary without the phone ringing? It was just junk. That's all it was. Just somebody trying to call us to scam us out of money. Anyway, hey, the thing. Look at that. There's a giant, weird, black dog thing crawling out of his belly, and he's got a huge... Well, fuck you too. Not the most eloquent one-liner.
But still effective.
Now, why was that boom so big?
Because, maybe he's got, radioactive blood.
I think it's because there was that cachet of dynamite that was right next to it.
It's not cachet, it's cash.
You say tomato, I say tomato. But I guess if I was faced with a giant mutated hell beast from outer space, I couldn't really think of anything super pithy to say other than, well, fuck you too. And of course it's cool when Kirk says it.
Well, like I said, it's effective. Where's Kurt Russell in The Expendables?
Stallone wanted him for the first movie, but he turned it down. I know, right?
He's one of those action stars that's too good for a paycheck?
I guess.
I mean, what has he done recently besides, Sky High?
Yeah, well, him doing in the Disney films are all right, since that's, as I said, where he got his start. But I do prefer Kurt in badass mode. Doesn't happen enough. He might be in Tarantino's next film, and he was pretty good in Grindhouse, so it'd be great to see him in something like that again. So the film is wrapping up at this point. The big thing has been eliminated. And now now it's just McCready and Childs in the cold.
Did you kill it?
Where were you, Charles?
Thought I saw Blair. What about that? That lost this gold.
Now I suppose the implication is that Childs could be the thing, since he serendipitously disappeared. However, the movie is putting ambiguity into it intentionally. You're not supposed to know. Because it's all about that paranoid tone, how you never really know who's human and who's the thing.
Maybe we should. If you're worried about me,
We've got any surprises for each other. I don't think we're in much shape to do anything about it.
And this is one of the best endings in a horror movie, I think.
Well, probably.
Because it has almost the exact same effect of a last-minute jump scare, but it's not as obnoxious or blatant as that.
Wait here for a little while.
Because the implication is
See what happens.
one of them's a thing, but they're both going to freeze to death.
Huh. You know what I think?
What's that?
I don't think that either one of them is the thing.
That's a possibility, too. And they're
And
both...
the reason I say that is because, unless something happens here in the last couple of minutes, is because we don't know what happened to that guy that was screaming, I don't want to spend the rest of my time here tied to this fucking couch.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, he got his face figured, yeah.
Yeah.
But we don't actually see him die.
Well,
How do we know that the thing wasn't infecting him?
Well, that's a good question, though. That boom was pretty big, but, he's...
But he was off screen after that.
Yeah.
So we don't actually see him die.
Yeah, that's true. We don't know. He could still be out there. But, do you think that both Childs and McCready are they're going to freeze to death, whether or not one of them's a thing or not? They're both going to...
Well, right.
So, And maybe that's an interesting point. Maybe they are both human, and they're just too paranoid to trust one another. So instead of working together to survive longer, they are just going to sit there and freeze to death because they just can't trust each other. So that's an interesting thought too, and that would certainly feed into the movie's themes of paranoia.
Mm-hmm.
You're smart sometimes. No, you're smart all the time, buddy.
Thanks. Did we just have another broment?
Sure, go for it.
But I maintain that I think that if they were to ever, and please God, let this not happen, to a sequel to this movie that's 25 years old, or almost probably like 30-some years old now.
Yeah.
That's how they could get your little sequel hook in there. Is that he?
Well, that would certainly be more interesting than what the obvious sequel idea is. That there's another Arctic team and they find the remains of the thing and it just starts all over again. That isn't very interesting.
No.
Did you ever play the Thing video game? I think that was on the original Xbox or and PS2.
No, I don't think I did.
I think that was supposed to be a direct sequel to this movie. I think that was like a team comes to investigate what happened. I never played it. I heard it wasn't as good as it was supposed to be. But
I mean, I remember it. I just never played it.
Yeah. And it's something that was discussed for a while there, and it never happened, but I would have been interested in seeing this, is John Carpenter talked about directing a sequel to this movie as a miniseries on the Sci-Fi Channel. And it would have been about the Thing in a populated area. It would have been about the Thing getting back to the mainland.
Well, right there's your sequel hook to how it got there.
Yeah, indeed. And, of course, that didn't get made. And who knows if it would have been good or not, because Carpenter, though we love his classic films, is not a consistent talent anymore. And who knows how putting something on TV as a miniseries would have gone. But that would have been pretty cool to see the Thing unleashed in a populated area.
Yeah. But then you have the whole, thing of they probably wouldn't do it as practical effects.
Yeah, which is always the problem. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in here.
And, that's what makes this movie. And I'm sorry, but that is what makes this movie, is the practical effects.
Well, I think if you had put these amazing effects in a film where everything else wasn't as good, the film would not be as fondly remembered as it is. But the effects are, of course, amazing and fantastic.
Well, yeah, but if the movie was written as well as it is, but the effects were shit,
I think it maybe wouldn't be as well regarded, but I think it would still. I mean, I always believe that the story is always the thing people will remember the most about a movie.
Really?
I maintain that.
What about that one movie where it's clearly a guy moving the tentacles to attack himself, and it's like in a suit, and Elvira makes fun of it, and
okay.
It's an old black and white film. And, the only thing people remember about that movie is the god-awful effects.
You could be describing any number of films. The point is, I think everything came together to make this movie the classic that it is. The performances are great, the writing is fantastic, the direction and editing is shipshape, and the special effects are, of course, phenomenal. So I think it all came together to make The Thing, which is... Some people will say it's one of the best horror films ever made. And I don't know if I'd go that far, but it's up there. It's way up there.
Oh, no, it's definitely one of the best ever made. I mean, maybe not in the top 10, but, there's...
Well, it's silly to rank things that way anyway, because every movie is good. Every great classic like this is good for different reasons. But the point is, yeah, this is one of the best. This is on the essential list. For sure.
Yeah, it's on the 1001 movies you must see before you die list.
I bet it is. That was our attempt to do a commentary on The Thing. The credits are still rolling, but the movie's over.
As usual.
There were distractions. The phone rang. The dog was barking. We rambled off topic repeatedly.
Very discombobulated.
They always are. Maybe that's part of the appeal. If you want to email us at bangersandmash88@yahoo.com. We always love to hear from you. The Facebook group has been growing slowly but consistently. Thanks again in to everybody on the Facebook group, and that's at www.facebook.com/thebangersandmashtshow. My book, The Last of the Monster Kids, my short story collection, is still available on Amazon.
Forever.
On Amazon.co.uk. Lee left his review. Thank you so much. I'm on Twitter at LastMonsterKid. Real episode next time, we promise. It'll be better.
Should we go and tell them what next month is?
No, let's leave them in suspense.
Ooh.
All right, guys. See you around. Keep listening. Keep watching the skies, and watch out for the thing.